We're talking about other shit. We're talking about other shit. There's other shit out there.
Moratorium extended to October.
Oh, you're talking about the
eviction
thing?
Yep.
Yeah, man.
They lost their shit. People were losing their shit. They're like, oh my God. And now my dilemma with eviction moratorium is we're at like 16 months in pretty much. There are people out there who have not probably even attempted to pay their rent because the government said we don't have to. You will not be evicted. So there are people out there who are just not doing it. Period.
Yeah, I don't know what the stats are on that. I don't really thoroughly understand even what exactly does it say? Does it say nobody in the country can be evicted for any lack of paying rent?
At first, kind of. They basically said that if you were behind, if you didn't pay your rent, the landlord could not evict you, that the court would not process the eviction, right? So they can go, all right, well, whatever. Now, here's what they will do. They can take the moratorium and say, and this goes for rent and mortgages, if it's 6 months, all right, at the end of 6 months, you owe us 6 months rent. So these people didn't have money to pay 1 month rent.
Right.
How are they going to have 6 months rent?
Right.
So now there are people in here that are into it for probably 16 months.
Yeah,
rent.
sure.
And where are they going to go? Now, my thing is like, I feel like there's a way to make money out there. And they just, if you're telling me that you just could not work, and that was another argument I had on social media with somebody. Oh, what if you're a single parent? You can't work. Well, if you're a single parent and you can't work because you have a child or multiple children, how do you feed your children? How did you do it before COVID? Like whatever you did before, you can still do now. You can still do that. The daycares are open, schools are open. Nothing really completely stopped. Sure, some jobs went away. More jobs, they create jobs every time they go on TV. They tell us how many jobs they've made. They're amazing at creating jobs.
10 million jobs.
10 million jobs. You didn't get one. All right, well, next month there's going to be 10 million more jobs. So I don't understand the logic behind it going, all right, we're going to extend it through this. And here's the footnote to the entire thing is there is a stack of people waiting to go to the courthouse to evict some people.
Well,
that is beyond big.
Here are the stats that I do know from following this as much as I have. And first of all, I think everyone would admit that we have a homeless problem in America, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, according to statistics, and I try to study this very much, being as I have spent the last 8 years homeless myself, I know it. I know the issue fairly well. I've paid attention to it. The estimate is there is a rough estimate of 150,000 homeless people in America, which to me has always sounded very low.
150,000?
150,000 homeless people in America is what I have read repeatedly. But you can look that up, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Here's what I look at, and this is what I understand about the moratorium. There are 11 million people.
553,000.
Okay, 550. I may have read it.
That's not even now.
I'm going
to see if I can find.
I may have read outdated numbers. That's possible, but it's still way lower than I would have thought. I would think it's in the millions because I've lived everywhere, and everywhere I go, I see homeless people, and have been one. So I know among my peers of homeless people, it's a lot of people.
How do they even count them, honestly?
Well, right, exactly. I mean, there is no way to count it. All they can do is estimate.
They are estimating that it's 500,000.
Okay, 500,000.
550,000.
I thought it was 150. I don't know where I got that number from, but I thought. But even 500,000, that's a lot. Now, what I understand about the moratorium is this: under the current system, whatever it is, I didn't really pay close attention to it because it didn't affect me. I wasn't somewhere, I wasn't renting. I didn't have to worry about somebody evicting me. I always felt grateful for the fact that I lived in my Jeep and I didn't have to worry about it. I was like, well, I live in my Jeep. Nobody can evict me from my Jeep. I have the title. I own it. I'm going to live here no matter what. I'll stack it up with water. I'll stack it up with tuna fish, and I'll live in here no matter what happens in the world. But my understanding of what I've recently read is there are 11 million people under the moratorium who, if it ended tomorrow or whenever it does end, because it will ultimately end, 11 million people will all be evicted at one time. So if you think the problem in the United States of homelessness right now is bad, and it is bad,
Right.
with 500,000 people, imagine adding 11 million people to that mix. And by the way, I'll make it real clear to those of you who have never lived homeless. It ain't fucking easy. It's not like you just put your shit in a shopping cart and you fucking mosey down the road until you find something else. You're in deep shit when you're fucking homeless. You're most likely going to lose your job soon. You have nowhere to shower. You have nowhere to fucking eat. You have nowhere to take a piss. You have nowhere to go to the bathroom. You have nowhere to spend any of your time that's not either freezing fucking cold or hot as fuck. Those are your two options as far as the weather. So it is a miserable experience. If you are not, and I prepared myself for it. I spent a year getting ready to intentionally abandon my home and live in my Jeep, and prepared myself for it. If you're just thrown out into the street, because I've talked to other people that knew I was homeless, and they were like, I don't know how you do it, man. Once I had to live in my car for like 3 days. It was the hardest 3 days of my fucking life. I was like, man, it is hard. It is very hard, and you better be ready for it. And if we all of a sudden have 11 million people that are homeless that have no idea how to adjust to that lifestyle, how to live that lifestyle, you're going to see it everywhere. You think you see people on the side of the road holding up signs now? There won't be people on the side of the road holding up signs. There will be people on the side of the roads living in a fucking tent right there on the side of the goddamn road.
Which is what's happening in a lot of, LA.
In some of the major cities. But we're going to see that.
There'll be a tent shortage.
20.
It's no toilet paper shortage. Tent shortages. It's going to be, man. And let me tell you something. It's not hard to steal a tent from another person if they're not in it. It's probably pretty easy. Just go fucking get the tent.
Crime is going to go way up. There's no doubt.
I don't know that they'll be able to process just the legal aspect of it. I mean, I imagine they'll get to a certain number a day in each where they are.
That date is coming.
But it is coming. That shit is going to
no matter how long they delay it. And I would think that they're only making it worse by delaying it, because my guess is if you haven't paid your rent, and at this point they're extending it. I don't know what the policy is. I don't know. You can just sit there and don't pay rent. I don't know. But obviously you are accumulating a debt that you've got to pay at some point. They're not saying you don't have to pay it at all. They're saying we're delaying you having to pay it until this time. So you're going to have to pay it. And these people are not sitting there going, well, let's get this money ready. So no, they're saying, let's stay here as long as we can, and then when the moratorium comes, they'll kick us out. We'll make other plans.
And the second to that is, you're not going to be able to rent anything after getting evicted like that. Like, good luck finding any place that's going to let you be there. The reality of what maybe should have happened is there should have been some kind of program to which you say, look, I lost my job. I have no money. I can't pay my rent. So they're gonna force stay your rent. It's X amount of dollars. You submit your paperwork, and then there is a subsidy program that pays the rent to the property that owns it. Because at the end of the day, most people that have a property owe money on that property.
Right. My understanding of it, and my knowledge is limited on this topic, because I ignored it because it didn't affect me. I lived in my Jeep. I wasn't worried about being kicked out of my Jeep. My understanding is that there is money that is currently available for, there's a $50 billion fund that is currently available for the people that have been waiting for rent. But the money, because of how our government works, because of how inefficient it is, because of how they don't really, honestly, please let me meet the person who thinks the government gives a flying shit about you. They don't fucking care. They don't make these programs so that the average person can benefit from them. They don't. Let me explain to you what the government does. No differently than they're doing with the infrastructure, no differently than they do with tax breaks, no differently than they do with everything. They care about, the only people they fucking give a shit about are the rich people that keep them getting elected. That's the only people they fucking care about. They are indebted to those people. They owe those people for the votes that they got, and they're going to make sure that they look out for those people. So when they come up with a program, any program, the only thing they are trying to do is pay back the people that they owe money to for getting elected. That's it. That's all it is. That fucking simple. And you can look at your elected official. It will not take long. And anybody that is newly elected to a national office in this country, it will not take long before they are a rags to riches story. And you will look at where they live. You will look at how they dress. You will look at how their life is. And you can see that all of a sudden they've got everything. And they're not getting paid that much as an elected official. They're making their money from the people who are contributing to their campaign, which suddenly they can use to pay for everything. And they have PACs and all kinds of fucking bullshit and ways to gain money and get money and hide money and people paying them money. They're getting bribed right in front of our faces. It happens all the time, directly in front of us. And I would just say, man, what I hope doesn't happen is that suddenly 11 million people find themselves out on the street all at one time. Because if that happens, you're talking about a large scale of chaos that this country's not prepared for.
The end of the Biden presidency, if that happens. That'll be it. Over. Game over.
That will be
game, set, match.
That will be the end of law and order in this country.
Not about law and order.
11 million people out on the street all at one time. Let me tell you something, man. When nothing will compel somebody to commit a crime that they did not think they would commit more than hunger.
Do you watch, I'm sure it's on Fox News because it's Fox News. The people in California walking out of stores with merchandise.
Absolutely.
And there's people online.
That's happening in California right now. Do you think that that's only going to happen in California?
No, but it's happening in California mainly because the punishment is just a fine, misdemeanor.
Here's the mentality that you adopt in that stage. They cannot arrest all of us.
Yeah, but
when you're sitting around with 11 million other people and you're like, hey man, we're all fucking hungry. So if 11 million people go into stores all over America and just start looting, there is very little. You can look throughout at protests and how they ultimately evolve into looting scenarios.
Yeah.
Protests around America, not with 11 million people, but with a couple thousand people. There's a couple thousand people, they get together, they start out protesting a political event or something that they're upset about. And all of a sudden they realize in the numbers that they have that they can get away with a lot of shit. And they start looking at each other and they're going, hey man, we can bust that window and we can go in there and we can all get whatever the fuck we want. And it happens. So
every time
saying that whenever I say the things that I say are in normal life, people look at me like I'm completely fucking insane. And I get it. I understand that what I'm saying does not match what people are hearing when they're watching TV right now is, don't worry, the government has a plan. We have some mandates that are going to come down. In New York,